The Sioux City Community School District's board is looking to vote on the enforcement of a policy that's actually been set since 2015. It requires school district administrators to live within the city limits. The policy would impact 4 school administrators that are working right now within that district.
That's right. KTIV's Clayton Anderson joins us in studio tonight. So Clayton, what would this requirement entail?
Matt, Jessica, this would require that administrators in the district live within the city limits of South Sioux City. This would include school administrative employees, which means all full-time employees employed in administrative or supervisory positions. Now, this would not include rank and file positions such as teachers and janitors. In the policy, it states that residency in South Sioux City Community School District includes all administrators initially employed as the superintendent of schools, assistant superintendent, director, coordinator, principal, assistant principal, or activities director from July 1st, 2015 and after. Therefore, if you are hired after that date and live outside of the district, you would be required to move if the board agrees to keep the policy. The policy states reasons the board at the time felt this policy would be beneficial. One reason, as stated in the policy, is more comprehensive knowledge of the district, as well as being more likely to be involved in activities, as well as diminishing absenteeism and tardiness. And lastly, economic benefits to South Sioux City. In a statement, School Board President Chris Kruger said, in part, during the review of administrative policies and second reading of Policy 2011, the Board of Education discussed implementing that same residency requirement for current administrative staff that were previously in place for future hires. End quote. You can find his full statement online now at ktiv.com. We also talked to one parent who is concerned that her child's administrator at Cardinal Elementary would have to leave the district because of this policy. She said she did not see any lack of involvement in the community or lack of dedication because the administrator lived outside the district.
I feel like right now with the shortage of the teacher shortage and staff shortage, I feel like change can be a very big deal for the kids right now.
According to the policy, those administrators who do not live in the district would have to move into the district within 90 days. This policy is pending board approval as a meeting this coming Monday, May 13th, will have the vote. In comparison, a much bigger school district in the Sioux City Community Schools does not have a residency requirement for employees. Reporting in the studio, Clayton Anderson, KTIV News 4.
Clayton, thank you.